One. And all righty, welcome. This is I'm Doc Hawk, and this is Comics and Variety Indie Comics Stream Live with my co-host Revolution, aka Alexander. How are you tonight, Alexander?
I am good. How are you today, sir?
I can't complain, and even if I could, who'd listen? So we also have with us tonight Luke Stone, who's is going to be filling in for Leanore King. I'll be telling you about that in just a minute. But he's going to be doing a little bit of drawing for us. So hello, Luke, and it's nice to have you aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here tonight.
All right, great. Let's share my screen here. All righty. Luke will be talking about his comic book hybrids, the Son of God's Trash Day graphic novel. Newly minted heroes learn to adapt their new lives while trying to take down human traffickers. When I grab this screenshot, he's about 7% away from his very reasonable goal of $5,000. There is a link to it in the description below. I've also dropped a link to it in the chat. So do back this if you have not done so already. Luke will be discussing this in a few minutes. Also, my comic book Tilt Part 2 is still in the sign-up phase. Link to that is in the description below. I'll also drop that into the chat. If you sign up, you'll get a free Tilt magnet with your purchase. And what the heck? I ordered the magnets about a week ago, and they have come in. And this is what you're going to get to. Can you guys see that? I can't see my screen right at the moment.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is what you will be getting to put. Yeah, there we go. You'll get to put this on your refrigerator or anything else that takes magnets, wherever you want to put it. But yeah, these are ready to go. I believe I have ordered more than enough, but folks, feel free to make me sweat. That would be a good kind of anxiety to have if I've got enough magnets for all the signups. And then in a little bit, we will be, Alexander and I will be discussing John Gallagher and Carla Tornielli's The Grim Reaper 2. So stick around for that. And first, we need to do a little bit of news. And unfortunately, not all of it's good news, but let's start with Leanore. She is not here this evening. She was going to color a picture of Tilt. I guess I can, she shared this on Twitter. Her dad is been kind of in and out of the hospital with some operations, and he now has to go back in. There were some complications, and understandably, she felt that she was just not up for it this evening. So again, Luke has graciously offered to kind of step into that role. Not coloring something for Tilt 2, obviously, but will be giving us something. Have you decided what you're going to draw yet?
Yeah, I think I've just started sketching a little something here. So hopefully...
let me bring it up real quick.
Just drawing my guy Trash Man here. That's in the book. I can pretty much draw this guy on cue.
So. Well, you got it up there fast. We're only so all righty. And what else should I let me share my screen here. Entire screen. And first up is some other rather unfortunate news. Just when you thought 2020 couldn't get any worse, couldn't suck any harder, Eddie Van Halen is dead at 65. And I think I was still 13 when they released their seminal album, 1984. Which was one of their biggest sellers and certainly their biggest seller to date, and just shot the band into the stratosphere. I mean, they'd always been a pretty popular band prior to that, but, I still remember some of the great songs from that album. I mean, I have no trouble remembering Jump, Panama, and, Eddie Van Halen was a phenomenal guitarist. He's often considered one of the best hard rock guitarists to have ever picked up a guitar pick. And he passed away from cancer today. He had been a heavy smoker. He's also thinks that he got throat cancer, though not from smoking, but from these metal guitar picks that he used to hold in his mouth on stage at times. I don't know if that's true, but that's what he said. And so Eddie Van Halen, R.I.P. We will. It's quite a loss for the music world. Okay, let's move on to some happier or more entertaining stuff here. I like to. This is my old standby, Steve Inman, and. And this is, we'll just do this real quick.
How many does it take? Today's hypothesis. How many women does it take to open or lift this gate? Only time will tell. The answer? None. Because the gentleman will step in and push it open. Please step aside, ladies. Thank you.
All righty, and we'll play one more, and then we'll play some others a little later on in the show. But
flying his little ghetto copter he found online and copter. As you can see, Darren is flying his little ghetto copter he found online and put it together himself. And that proof is pretty obvious, as you can see the look in his eyes. That is definitely an oh shit look as he gets bitch slapped and slammed by Mother Nature. Oh my God.
ow.
Somebody get this man a pillow. Let's take a quick look at the replay. You can see right here, Darren's just having a nice flight with his ghetto copter he built from online parts and parts he bought from China. So this is definitely a problem, and that would probably explain the oh shit look. And then he completely gets bitch slapped and thrown and slammed to the ground by Mother Nature herself. I don't think Mother Nature's happy with parts from China either. Darren, you okay? As you can see, Darren is flying his little ghetto copter he found.
Okay, let's move on now. And Luke, why don't you tell us a little bit about? Do you want me to bring up the screen for hybrids, or do you want to?
Sure.
Do that?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, let me give me just a second here.
I like the premise of your comic, by the way, in the fact that the heroes are fighting against an actual real world threat.
Yeah.
Because in so many of these things, these universe destroying terror, and yet you've got all this stuff going, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we have real things that are happening in the world, and I want to do my book in a way that obviously there's a comic book and a superhero twist to it, because there has to be. But I wanted to do something that had that kind of dealt with something that was somewhat important, especially important to me. I've got 2 kids, and I talk about the troubles of human trafficking all the time. We live where I live in Jacksonville. It's a serious problem here. It's worse in Tampa and in Miami, but we do have a problem with human trafficking here in Jacksonville. So it happens all the time. It happens in broad daylight, and so it is an issue. So I do try to deal with that topic. So hybrids. It's kind of a little different. So, do you guys ever watch the ancient alien shows or things like that? Are you ever getting into those kind of stuff?
Not really.
Okay. Well, I did quite a bit. I actually got a little obsessed with it at one point. So it was probably about 10 or so years ago. I used to have a conversation with, or multiple conversations with a pastor friend of mine. He was kind of mentoring and training me in ministry. And after youth group, we would, all the kids had left and we'd been cleaning up and stuff. We would start having these conversations about weird things that happen or things that are in scripture and stuff that don't make sense. And one of those things was in Genesis chapter 6. It talks about these sons of God or angels would come down. They see the daughters of men. They liked them. They would start to have babies with them. Right. And so there's a whole bunch of different theories on those and like what that means, and all of that. But one of the things that was really intriguing about that concept was that not just the Christian Bible reflected that instance. It actually, a lot of major religions around the world will have some kind of account about this, angels and humans having babies. And then there's a lot of other books out there that lend to the idea that this really did happen. And some of the stories about these fantastic creatures, the Nephilim is what they're called, actually looked a lot like some of the stories of the Greek gods. And it turns out that the stories that were written down about the Nephilim predate the first writings of the Greek gods by about 1,500 years. So really smart people think that the Greek gods were actually just embellishments of real life Nephilim. And so that got me thinking, well, what if all of these things, these ancient aliens and pyramids and Atlantis and Greek mythology and Norse mythology and all of these things, what if they were all tied together and there was one single linchpin, and that linchpin was Genesis chapter 6, where it talks about those sons of God having babies with the daughters of men? Like, what if that was the thing? And we know that they were having babies already. So what if they continued to have babies, and over time the genetic material that made up the Nephilim just kind of got watered down, and people could actually be walking around with this dormant angelic DNA? And if something were to happen to wake that up, it could start bringing back people that have these godlike abilities again. And so that was kind of the concept of what was going to happen in the world. And so that started about 10-ish years ago. And I really started to work on the idea of, I didn't want a story just about superheroes. Now, we have the idea of how people can get superpowered here. There has to be a world around it, and things they all have to intertwine with each other. So I started to build a world, and one of the things that came to mind was human trafficking is a big issue. I just said that. To me, it's a big issue in our world, but it's also something that I want to advocate for and want people to do something about. And so I thought, well, what if these newly powered people, what if they started to vanish? What if someone was going around and taking them? And why would they be doing it? And all of the reasons kind of parallel real life. But that's basically kind of where the story starts out. It starts out with people just overnight start developing these powers. And as soon as they develop the powers, someone's coming around and abducting them. And we actually start the story with this guy named Trashman. His real name is Clarence, but he doesn't like to go by Clarence. Mm-hmm. So he has this nickname, Trashman, and he's actually at work. He works as a trashman. That's how he got his nickname, because he's a trashman. And so he goes by Trashman, and he's at work one day. Thus, the name of the arc is Trash Day, because it's Trash Day. He is going about his business. There was some weird things that happened the night before. And in the process of just going about his day gets interrupted by this abduction attempt. And he's able to thwart that with the help of some strangers to him, complete strangers to him. And that's the first issue. And then what happens is, after that, he kind of joins up with these new people, finds out that the story goes way deeper. So we get a look at this whole world and what's going on kind of through Trashman's eyes as the introductory character, if you will, kind of like the everyday, the everyman, even though we don't all have superpowers. So yeah, that's kind of the core of the story, and we kind of build it there. So it is an ensemble book. We got a lot of characters we're working with on this one.
Got quite a few tiers here.
We do. This is my first real serious Indiegogo. Normally I run an Indiegogo after a successful Kickstarter, and I'll run it just for a very minimal amount of money so that I can get go in demand. So this is the first time I've actually taken the book first to Indiegogo. And its big focus, the focus on funding it, has been on Indiegogo. So I come from a background where we put a lot of tiers in things. We do that. And I started out with just a few tiers, and basically it was just, you could get each cover of the book, basic cover or basic tier, and then it goes up to the collectors and then the ultimate collectors. And then I had a super box where you can put everything in there. Then I had people asking for little ways to be able to support, because when you're doing a trade paperback like this, because this is all 5 issues plus a bunch of extras that's been compiled into one book.
I love that blue. I love that blue. That particular one is my favorite. What I've seen so far. I love that.
Awesome.
Very dynamic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to draw. I actually have the pencils available for that. I normally work digitally, but a few cases I will print off my layout, and then I will work with traditional pencils and then go back to digital inks. And so I actually have that pencil as one of the tiers, so people can actually get that, and they get to choose which cover of the book they want. So, but yeah, so I started out, and people just wanted they wanted some extra, cheaper ways to be able to support, and so we created a couple of those for people. And then we had new covers come out, new connected covers with the re-release of the books through Terraform Comics, and so we have those available in there as well for people that have been with the series before and they just want extra collectibles. So.
You've got some beautiful art here, that's for sure.
Thank you very much. I'm not the traditional 90s comic or even mainstream comic stuff, and I'm still working on it. The first issue was drawn 4 or 5 years ago. It was released in 2016, and then I drew issue 2 after learning quite a bit. And this was my first attempt at working digital, my first attempt at writing, and issue 2 came out a little better, and then I had to take about 18 to 20 months off of drawing and producing because I'm a full-time pastor. So I was working. There were some things going on at the church needed my full attention. And then I was able to come back in, and then I did issue 3, 4, and 5 pretty quick in concession with each other. But the art and the writing all, it all grew, but it's, even though there is stuff, I'm still not conventional. I'm not conventional, but
that's fine. We'll go back to that page in just a second and take a look at the video. Just want to say hi to a few people here. The Vic King is in the audience. Thank you. Hello, Vic. And Edwin signed up for the Ace mailing list Acevedo. Hail peeps. Hello, Edwin. Nice to have you aboard. All righty. All righty, let's go back to that, and we'll take a quick look at the YouTube video here.
New from Terraform Comics, Hybrids, The Sons of Gods, Volume 1, Trash Day. When everyday people develop godlike abilities, it is up to a small band of heroes to expose an evil superhuman trafficking ring. This 128-page volume merges history with fiction in an exciting, fast-paced adventure. Get your copy now.
All right, very nice. Okay, we'll do a little more promo of that a little bit later, but right now, why don't we go back to your drawing and just tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. Well, I'll start something from scratch. So it says I draw pretty quickly. So let's draw Trash Man, and so we'll put that up there. We'll get started. And I like to do things kind of semi dynamic. I like to. So you notice that one picture with the kind of the pose with him ripping
here it is,
energy through people. Let's just start with his head.
So you're doing this in GIMP, I think?
I'm doing it in Clip Studio.
Is that a free or paid program?
It is. I pay for it. It's a paid version of it's Clip Studio Paint XP, some kind of professional or whatever. I'm not quite sure. But it's I used to draw exclusively in Photoshop, but I've gotten to where I really like Clip Studio for a lot of reasons.
And so I'm guessing that when you do your art, do you have the image already visualized in your head, or do you just kind of build it as you go and make adjustments?
It depends. Like right now, it's just kind of, well, I'm going to draw his head, and I want to make sure that this is somewhat dynamic. So I'm trying to figure out, and you see, I just, I'll erase a little bit here. I'm kind of trying to get some body mass in this thing, and he takes up a lot of space. So I just kind of try to see where it's going to go.
That is fascinating. That is really fascinating how you're able to just kind of how with a few lines you start to see the character take shape. That's very, very quick as well. Um, like because as a photographer, like I've had to learn how to train my eye, but and I did draw way back when, but I still had to have a visual reference. I was not very good at drawing stuff out of my head, so I'm definitely curious as to how you trained yourself to be able to draw things that you don't have any visual basis for.
Well, I did a lot of graphic design for a while. And one of the things I would do is I would actually work with photographers to get things done for like commercial design. And part of that process was I needed to tell the photographer what pictures to take. So I had to have it what it was, and so I would, just I would rough things out and things like that. And so that's where it came from is doing that kind of design work. I still use photo references, and that's actually how I got into photography. Was I got tired of paying the photographers, so
yeah, we can be expensive.
Yeah. So I still get people trying to hire me to do photography, and I'm like, nah. I will do photography for bands. I will do family portraits. I'll do senior pictures, but I will not do weddings. I draw the line at weddings.
Why? Because I actually did my first wedding a couple of months ago, and that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, because I'm a pastor, and I've been in ministry for a long time. I haven't been a pastor for a long time, but I've been in ministry for a long time, and I'm very well aware of the demands of a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, yep, that's not going to be. I'm not. I don't even. Man, I hope none of my parishioners hear this. I really don't care to do weddings as the pastor, let alone as the photographer. So.
Really? Because I thought, well, because like with.
Go ahead, please. I was just joking.
Oh, well, because I always assumed that like a pastor, like they just have to do a little bit of research about the couple in question, write some beautiful flowery language and stand there and look stoic and smile and wave when they need to. And I mean, the photographer, having done that kind of stuff myself as a photographer, that's what's really difficult because, especially since it was my first time doing a wedding, knowing where to stand, knowing, trying not to get in people's way, but also you have to get these particular shots. And then it was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I don't do a wedding without having first done some marriage counseling. So I'm also a licensed marriage counselor and couples counselor. So. So yeah, I don't even go into the wedding without having done that.
Very nice proportions. I like this.
So when you do that, how often do you actually, prevent them or stop them from getting married?
You would think that it would be.
Don't answer that. I'm
You
kidding.
think it would be a lot more than what it is, but it isn't actually that often that happens. There has been a couple of cases. I can think of one particular case where I was like, "This you don't need to know." No, I will not marry you. You actually, I would deter you guys from even thinking about it. To be quite honest, I mean, they just were not compatible in any sense of the thought of compatibility. So it was pretty.
Very good use of depth of field as well. I like the yeah. You're good. You're good. You're very, very
Thank
good.
you. I appreciate that.
What are Trashman's powers?
So, that's a good question. And this is one of the really cool things about what he's able to do. He has a kinetic battery in his we say in his chest, but it's really his in his DNA and his cells. So basically he takes kinetic energy. So if he gets shot, he gets punched, he gets stabbed, he's invulnerable basically. Any of those kind of bits of damage, his body absorbs all that kinetic energy and it stores it and fills up this battery. So as soon as the battery is full, he's able to, or even before it's full really, he's able to release that.
Sorry, I just took a look at Edwin's comment. Is that meth went on steroids?
Yeah. Oh, I do have to say, so Edwin, he is all about the ancient aliens, and so we're speaking. I'm speaking your language there, buddy. So this is, we got a lot of really cool things that we get to do with this.
That does look a tad like
Are
Yeah.
we talking about Edwin?
I think we're talking about the former Pope of Comicsgate. Don't hear much from him anymore. I don't know.
No, he's kind of shied off a little bit, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about Trashman's powers out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, so you say he has a kinetic battery. Let's assume that he gets punched. How long does that energy stay in his battery? Is there like a period of decay, and like is it something where like he can then take that energy and reflect or project it onto someone else in a punch, in a beam?
Very good question.
Is it something that can be transmitted through weapons, like if he has a firearm or something, or a sword or a great hammer?
Yeah, it doesn't work through a weapon, but it does work through his body. He uses it in punches. He can use it in an area of effect. He can use it as a boost for jump. So he can use it in a lot of ways. But the thing is, as he's taking damage, he has to release his energy from his battery within a certain period of time, or else it will discharge itself. And if it discharges itself, it's an area of effect damage, so it can hurt his friends, and it also causes him to go unconscious. So it is very important that he. I'm just going to do this now. So here's what I do. I'll
somewhat intricate in terms of his abilities and how it works. That's
and each one of the characters has some of those qualities. These it gets quite detailed as far as how their powers work and stuff.
How have you handled scaling over the course of the comics? Because one thing that I've definitely noticed with the Marvel movies and whatnot is that as the movies have progressed, so like for example, one of my favorite movies in the Marvel universe is Iron Man, the very first one, because Tony's suit, what was it, the Mark II or 5? I probably might have Mark V. The original Iron Man suit, the one that he's known for, I think was the most grounded one. But as his powers and whatnot became more and more, they increased further and further. It became harder to take his character seriously. I mean, granted, I still love Iron Man as a concept and as a character, but how do you handle scaling where things don't just get silly, as in Dragon Ball Z levels of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, each character has I've got rules for making characters. A true Nephilim is 50-50. So you're going to have 50-50 DNA, half angel, half human, right? These are all hybrids. They are the ancestors of those true Nephilim. So they can only have around 40% at the highest level of DNA. So I predetermine how much DNA they've got that's angelic, and then I start to build their powers around that concept. That keeps them in check. Now, there are a few of them that have what I call God tier level abilities, but that actually plays into the story. That's kind of a part of the story is our villains are actually looking for that, looking for that God tier levels. And so that's how I do that. I try to keep that scaled, but then at the same time, I also only allow 5% character development as I go along the arc.
Vic King is saying that these digital artists are making his resistance to digital weaker with their fantastic work. Vic, by the way, is working on some art he's actually done the variant cover for Tilt 2, and I'm going to have him working on some of the art for the deck of cards here very shortly. Really, really fantastic stuff. And I did not know it was. I did not know you did not work digitally. So that's something I guess I just learned. So
I will say this about digital. I was very reluctant to move to digital as well, but I would watch So I'm originally from Indiana, and there's this guy named Kanan White. I don't know if you heard of him or not. But at the time, nobody really knew who he was, and he was doing these videos about, where he would do a warm up in the morning using a tablet like what I'm using now. And it made me think, wow, that's so smooth, and the line quality is so much like what you would get from actually drawing that I might want to try that. And so it got to where I got a regular digital tablet, like the old kind that were you had to look at the screen and draw. It was very separated. I didn't like that at all. And then I eventually moved into a very, the display tablets.
Let me ask, how much experience did you have doing this before you were able to sit down like you've just done and draw something like this where the arms are proportional, the chest is proportional. It's just, it's all working together, and you've done this in minutes. I'm just curious, particularly because I have absolutely no capabilities to do any of this.
It took me a lot longer than I wanted it to. That's for dang sure.
Well, one of the things that I've heard, like there's a book that you can get called Drawing on the Left Side of the Brain, I think it is. That's very, very helpful for people who swear they can't draw, because a lot of it, especially for things like faces and whatnot, is one of the hardest things, honestly, is being willing to be bad at something and being willing to iterate over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you start to see things. And even back when I was drawing when I was younger, years ago, that was the hardest part, sitting there and willing to draw, things like mushrooms and trees and things like that, because it's training your brain. But continue.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's just a big process of slowly getting where I needed to be. The first, and you'll notice when you read, so the fun thing about this trade is you get issues 1 through 5 plus some extra stuff, new content that we put in. And you'll notice that the art is a little more rustic. I don't know. It's a little more rudimentary than it is in issue 5. So you get to see the growth of me as an artist, not only in being able to draw the characters, be able to draw the human form. It was my first attempt with digital, like really with the display and everything. So that got better. And not only that, I got better at my layouts and and I worked with a layout artist to help me out with some of those things, and my sequential storytelling all got better. And so.
Very nice.
So
All righty.
Let's
interrupt this briefly, shall we, Alexander, and talk a little bit about Grim Reaper 2.
Yeah.
Give me just a second here. Okay, gotta remove that. We will not take too long because we certainly want to get back to Luke's art there. All righty. Grim Reaper 2 by John Gallagher and Carla Tornielli. Just want to briefly mention the very first Grim Reaper, which was a comic book I absolutely loved. I thought was fantastic. And Grim Reaper 2 ends with, the Grim Reaper is this character they give it a personality, which was really, a great idea. And he has various children who represents different types of death. And at the end, Percy's is one of the deaths. One of the children is opening up the door and is surprised at who it is. And so then we move on to Grim Reaper 2. And Grim Reaper 2 focuses around very much around one of the Grim Reaper's children by the name of Rage. And Rage is trying to seek revenge on the Grim Reaper for banishing him and banishing his sister by the name of Grief. And it basically starts out with one of the other sins, Lust, who is killed here. And Lust is not supposed to actually be able to be killed. And I'm going to get it off this page because this is supposed to be a family-friendly show. And the Grim Reaper then is basically trying to stop someone from killing people, and then basically then runs into an angel by the name of Azrael, who's letting him know that Rage is making trouble. And he also runs into a spirit by the name of Hope. And this comes from actually Pandora, from Pandora's box. Hope, as you recall, Pandora's box in Greek mythology is opened. All the evils are let out into the world. And Hope is supposed to be the one thing left. But Hope is kind of turned here into an evil being, or one with various, well, I don't necessarily want to say evil, but certainly not one that you know is certainly not a good guy. And I was reading up a little bit on it. In fact, there is it's not entirely clear. I guess, you know, some things got lost in translation, whether Pandora's box, Hope is what's left, or sort of something known as false expectation. I don't know if Carla Tornielli and John Gallagher are using that here, but Hope is actually trying to save humanity and wants to get rid of all the various sins, and is in league with Rage to he agrees to help Rage find his sister Grief, and in exchange for getting rid of killing a lot of the sins and other creatures that want to destroy humanity. And here is basically where we left off in issue 1. Percy's opening the door and seeing Rage there. There is a fight, and one of the things I like about this comic is I still very much like the art. There's still some very, very good art in here. And then one of the other things I like about it is that by introducing this Hope character, you know, Gallagher and Tornielli are setting it up for down the road where you know, this Hope character is going to be part of this. Looks like it's going to be part of the series and will be, you know, probably causing problems for the Grim Reaper. Let's see. What else here? The Grim Reaper ends up coming back, fighting Rage. And at the end, he goes back into hell to rescue Lust, who has been sent to hell when she was killed. And one of the other things I really like is that Percy's has at the end, there is this cliffhanger where Percy's, it looks like he is going to try to find Grief. And I'm sorry, not Percy's, Styx, one of the other children, is going to find Grief. So we've got a cliffhanger here, which puts Styx probably in conflict with the Grim Reaper, because the Grim Reaper also banished Grief. But so there's a fair amount good here, but there were problems with this comic, and I have to say I kind of hate doing this, simply because number one, I mean, John Gallagher and Carla Tornielli have both been so very nice to me. And I just, this is the one thing about this show that I sometimes hate, is having to bring some criticism into it. But there are problems with this comic. I was talking to Carla about this, and asked her, you know, kind of about, you know, what might have happened here, and she stands by the comic. Hey, good for her. I kind of felt like, you know, it's almost like with issue 1 they hit a triple, and then it felt like with issue 2 they you know, had pressure to live up to that and exceeded, and were trying to go for a home run. And, you know, sometimes when you go for a home run, you can, you know, strike out. I'm not saying they struck out here, no. But Carla also let me know that, you know, they had a house fire while they were going through issue 2, and then she got pregnant, and those things happen. You know, you're trying to do your best, and life brings in all these added stresses, and it sometimes can affect your work. I'm just going to bring up 2 criticisms here. One is that at times there were parts that were hard to follow, like this character here, Alexander. We never really find out exactly what this character was, other than some kind of crazy psychopath. And so it was that, what is this character doing in here? And that kind of made it hard to follow at times. And then also, you know, there were a lot of new characters that you introduced: Pandora, Lust, Rage, Hope, in addition to all the characters you already had, you know, Hermes, Perseus, Styx, and the Grim Reaper. and it felt a little overwhelming. I think, like, for example, it would have, maybe if they had eliminated this part here with this weird character, and then maybe make the Grim Reaper going into hell to rescue Lust, maybe make that part of a big part of issue 3, because that could really be kind of an extensive, a more extensive part, and you could draw that out. And then, you know, there were just like little things like this fight here between the Grim Reaper and Rage. This page, I had some trouble understanding exactly what was going on. So there were things like that. Again, this is not something here that this is not something I like doing, because I like John and Carla a lot, and I think they've got a lot of talent, and I hope they continue with this series. But there are some things they need to work on. So I guess I've hogged up enough time. Alexander, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I like so I will admit that comic books are somewhat still new to me. And reading in can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, comic books are still somewhat new to me as a format. Or new to me in terms of I'm not used to reading those. I'm more used to reading print novels. But I do know that with stories and whatnot, I think that you can run into issues of compression, where you try to put too much into a single book. As an example, one of my favorite book series, the Joe Ledger novels by Jonathan Mayberry, those books have a huge cast of characters, long, arcing storylines. The books are like 12 plus hours long, but it's almost never overwhelming, and it's always easy to understand where you are, because there's always backstory. There's it's you know what I mean. And with this, it's like the pace of everything is so quick. It's like I have no idea what's going on. I did love the art style. I liked the first one more than I liked the second one. But the problem that I have with the second one is that the second one felt like a completely different book, because even the Grim Reaper, her itself, is rendered differently. Like he has armor and whatnot, and so it just was. I really wish that they had, instead of trying to cram everything into that second book, that they'd simply plotted everything out and maybe spread out over 6 or 7 books, because that would have given the story time to breathe, if that makes sense. That's how I saw it. Beautiful art, but again, I think they try to cram a little bit too much narratively into a second book, and I do understand that they had issues they were dealing with, and so I mean, things happen.
Yeah, they do. And I just say, if they felt the pressure to go for a home run after hitting a triple, last night I went to the Arlington Draft House Theater with a friend, and we saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And one of the things that struck me about that movie is that it did not live up to the first, but to Raiders of the Lost Ark. But that movie absolutely captured lightning in a bottle. And you got the sense from watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, it was like Spielberg knew he was not going to capture lightning in a bottle. So he just set out to make a good movie. And Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom overall is a pretty good movie. It's enjoyable. You don't, you don't, most of the time you don't feel like you're watching a movie. You're watching you're in the middle of this adventure story. And I just, I'm going through issue 2 of Tilt right now. I understand that pressure, and I just think, look, if you just go out and instead of worrying about hitting a home run, just go for getting on base or even putting the ball in play. That's what you just have to do. And sometimes you have to settle for that. And and I mean, I think that's when you have a really great issue, like I think they had in issue 1, sometimes with issue 2, just follow it up with something solid and don't worry about exceeding issue 1. Now, again, I don't know. I kind of asked about that, and she didn't really expound. Carla didn't expound on that. So at any rate, it's I am looking forward to issue 3 of this, and I hope they keep producing because they have a lot of talent, and it seems like one of those things. There's a lot of stress in their life, and these things happen, and but there is still a lot of good to issue 2. So, all righty, we'll leave it there for now, unless you have any other comments, Alexander.
No comments. I really hope that they continue this series. If they could potentially produce, let's say, some branching stories that expand on these concepts to allow the story to breathe, I think that would be a good way to recover if they feel they need to recover from the second book. Because I mean, again, we could be talking out of our asses, and everyone else might be like, "Oh, this is perfect." So I mean, you know what I mean?
Could be. I don't know. I'm often talking out of my ass, so I don't know if there's any contingency there with could, but but yeah, I know what you mean. All righty, let's get back to Luke's drawing here, because it's really taking.
Yeah, you just caught me flipping it. That's what I like about digital. I don't have to get in the mirror. I can just do that. So like when I do that, I realize that I've got a little issue here with the shoulder, so I can just come in and fix it.
World Comics Review said he reread Tilt issue 1 yesterday, waiting for the second campaign to drop. Well, thank you, and I'm going to do my best not to disappoint. Also, the Fire Edwin said the Fire Stallion is dope. Yes, the Fire Stallion again is some very excellent art. And Edwin also says, I just read the first 2 issues of Green Reaper, not my type of comic. I'm more of a Christmas, but I enjoyed them a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to enjoy there. So, all righty. Yeah, boy, that's really coming. That's really nice. So, do you do your own coloring too, or do you have someone else do that?
I do coloring from time to time, but I usually hire that out for my books as much as I can. It's so time consuming. It's not my favorite thing to do. I'd rather do pencils and inks. And I've actually looked into maybe hiring an inker as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started getting into making comics, it was fascinating to me that there's 4 parts to making the page come alive. The sketch, the ink, the color, and the lettering. I'm like, oh wow! I just always assumed you drew and started coloring, and I'm like, oh wow, I have some really dumb assumptions about making comics.
So many books over the years. Like I was probably hired more for a letterer there for a while than I was an artist. And looking back at my old art, I totally get it. No hard feelings. Yeah, I get it. Let me letter the book. Now, this guy, I always leave a lot of the cross hatching open for his chest because he's hairy. He's a hairy guy, so I just put some hair on there, and that just fills in that negative space really well.
All right. What? How long does it usually take you to finish a full page?
I can do a page or 2 a day if I'm not busy. Like if I can stay on the art, I can do a page or 2 a day. So 1 week I actually finished 9 pages. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I was able to get 9 pages done, and it was quite the marathon, but we did get it done. So yeah, so that's about. But my average is, I try to say, with my day job, with pastoring and running a small publishing company and all that kind of stuff, I can probably work out about 4 or 5 pages a week if I'm lucky. That's about my average. And the pencils go a lot faster than the inks because it's like real sketchy and scribbly. And I'm actually doing more of a pencil here than what I normally would. I normally would stop, and I'm like, okay. And then I would just kind of like do some of this stuff and kind of get my lines where I wanted them. And then I would just go straight to a blue line like this, and then grab my inker. And then I would actually go in and ink this like, well, I got to get on the right page. There we go.
So why are you adjusting it on the axis like that?
because that's how I turn. I like when I would drew traditional, I would turn my page physically.
Oh, so you can more easily get certain curves.
Yeah, so I could get those lines the way I wanted them to, those curves the way I wanted to get them.
So here's a question for you: what are your favorite comic books?
My favorite comic books,
Yes.
they're all indies right now. I haven't really, as far as old school stuff goes, I really like old X-Men. I'm a big fan of Swamp Thing. I think if I ever got the chance to draw any mainstream comic, it might be Swamp Thing. That would be the one that I would want to do. So, yeah, but most of the stuff is indie now. I just read Till. I like that.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad.
Yeah, I like the way that one turned out. I've got some new ones too. What was the name of that book? Well, there's this book called Godsend that I really like, done by a guy named Lee Giles, and he's been doing it. His stuff comes out kind of slow, but most of them do. I like the Zombiful World of Oz. I don't know if you checked that one out or not, but that one's pretty good. That's a good one. I try not to name stuff that I'm on, so I have a tendency to be on a lot of books.
Is it a combination of drawing or lettering or one or the other? Or
Yeah, I don't letter so much anymore because I've been focusing on just on the art. But I'm starting to pick up more jobs. I guess I'm getting to the point where people want to hire me. So
yeah, well, I can see why. I think for the show, I think Alexander, you were asking him kind of what got him into comics initially.
Yeah, what got you into comics initially, and what made you want to become a comic book author in terms of drawing and in terms of writing, and what guided you in that direction? Like, how did you get the nerve to do that?
Sure, that's a great question. Well, I got into drawing first off with my mom and dad used to go out to this little place called Breakfast House in my hometown, and they would go out, with their friends and hang out until, honestly, all hours of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And they had a toddler, and I was bored out of my mind. And so one of the things that my mom did, she would bring pen and paper and let me draw. And I started drawing, and I fell in love with drawing at that point. And for this little kid with ADHD, I was able to focus for hours with that pen and paper in my hand. So I didn't learn to draw with a pencil. I learned to draw with a big pen, ballpoint pen. And so it was kind of a weird start to it, but I started to get better and better. And then early on, about 1985, I was 5 years old. I got introduced to this thing called He-Man. And I just fell in love with this, the Masters of the Universe thing and that show. And from there, I was introduced to a comic book series called Secret Wars. And Mike Zack was a part of that. And I remember getting issue 4 and seeing that cover of the Hulk standing there all heroic, holding this big rock up, saving all the other heroes. And that just sparked my, right there that was the love affair with comics at that point. And so I continued to do that as I would draw. I always wanted to draw comics. I would sit with my friends at lunch and draw comics, make up our own characters and things like that. And then I eventually stepped away from that because where I grew up, we didn't have a whole lot of people that were really into comics. So it was like I couldn't really express myself creatively with people because they didn't get it. So I got into music, and it was easier to pick up chicks with guitar than it was with with comic books. Unfortunately, that works. So that got me going with kind of going in another direction, but I still always loved comic books. I would collect them and things like that. And every time someone found out that I could draw, they wanted to do a comic book. I never thought about writing one though. I remember the first one I did, I wrote and I drew, and it was really bad. I think I was like 13 at the time, and it was called F-Dome, Future Defenders of Modern Earth. So it was like it's really bad, and I did it on like 8.5 by 11 paper, folded in half, and I drew it, penciled and inked with the ballpoint pen, and then I colored it with pastels that I had gotten for Christmas. And so it was really bad, and but that's all I knew. That's how I did it. But then it got to where, you know, as I would try to make comics with friends, they would write, and then I actually went to the point to where I would work and do graphic design for printers in exchange for them to print my comics, which is really fun. Yeah. Because it was really expensive to print, you know, and in demand stuff, you know, it was like really expensive, but I would work and do graphic design for them, and they would print my books for me. So
hail Forest Publishing.
Yeah.
Hail everyone.
What's up, man?
Is that Richard Embry?
That's Richard Embry. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Richard. How are you? Well, I had FDOME. That's not a particularly bad acronym, given that you were only 13.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You know, you could. I could actually think you could still do something with that. I mean, you could do a kind of an early '90s, a little bit over the top comic with, you know, the Future Defenders of the
Modern Earth.
There you go.
It's an evergreen title.
It really is. And so if I ever did, it would be a tongue in cheek. It'd be a joke. You know, it'd be like, okay, let's make fun of all things kind of cheesy comic stuff. That would be my thing. So if I did that again, but yeah, maybe one of these days I'll resurrect the old FDOME crew and put them in the book, you know, put them into a book form again, and we can all have a good laugh. But yeah, so that's what got me doing that. I really wanted to do it. Oops, mistake.
How did you get into photography?
Well, it was because I actually went to school for graphic design, and then I would do a lot of freelance graphic work on the side, kind of making my way in the world. And one of the things that I got so sick of doing was giving my money away to photographers, because I would need like stock photos and stuff like that. And so I would actually have to pay for people to do the photography. And so I just decided to pick up a camera. One day I had taken a picture. I was in Chicago. I took a picture with my cell phone, and it turned out really good. And people ask, "Oh, what iOS did you use, or what ISO did you use?" I'm like, I mean, what ISO did you use? And I'm like, I used an iOS. That's what I used. They're like, what? I'm like, I took it with my phone. So yeah, so that was kind of where that started. I wound up buying, you know, some cheap gear, practicing a little bit, learned how to do all the photography stuff, and then moved on from there. But comics has always been my love. You know, it's always been what I wanted to do. And it was 2014, November 2014. I had moved to Florida. I started here as the music and youth pastor. And one of the problems that we were running into was I had a huge music scene back where I came from in Kokomo. There was, you know, we could play, you know, bands all the time. And I primarily did like Christian rock music and things like that. And it's just funny, I'm talking about that. This book is not a Christian book, by the way. It's just a comic book. I get that question all the time. So it's a Christian book? I'm like, no, it's just a comic book. But I was having a really hard time finding venues and finding bands and, you know, people to play with and stuff like that. And I had started to think, well, maybe I'll just, you know, to have some kind of a hobby, I'll start doing comics again. I'll start drawing. Maybe I'll just write something or find somebody to write it and I'll draw it. And a few weeks later, it was early November, a friend of mine, Gary Dale, his brother, who actually did comic books for IDW. He worked on the G.I. Joe, and he did his own book called Skyward. And he was a fantastic artist, fantastic writer, did a lot. And we kind of lived vicariously through the fact that, you know, he was doing comics. And so one of us from the group made it, you know. And but I found out that he had gotten sick at a convention and passed away.
Oh no.
Yeah, passed away. He was just, you know, just a couple of years older than I was. So it was, I mean, that kind of shook me. And I was like, you know, here's this guy, you know, he was living his dream. You know, he was ahead of his 5-year plan, you know, doing comics. He loved doing comics. And I always wanted to do it. And it was just like, it was like a wake up call to me. And I was like, I'm going to make a comic book. And so I found a writer for this book that I was working on called Worst Day Ever. Is this concept where I'd written a couple of blog posts about a guy who has to go to work dressed as a hot dog during the zombie apocalypse.
What?
Yeah, so this was my concept. It was a rom-com, and so I had written a couple blog posts, and I was like, you know, I need a writer. I didn't think of myself as a writer, so I needed a writer to attack this thing, right? And so I hired this guy to do the writing, and then I did the first 5 to 8 pages, and tried to pitch it, and got turned down. You know, my art wasn't good enough, the story concept wasn't strong enough, or whatever, and so I just wound up self-publishing that thing. And I mean, now I'm actually going to rework that and remove everything that he wrote and just take my blog posts that I had written and make those into a comic book. I went back and read the blog post, and they're pretty hilarious, actually. And I was like, how did I, you know, I was like, apparently the all the things needed were there at the time. I just didn't see it. I didn't believe in myself. So it wasn't until this book, when I had this concept that I had been working on, hoping to find a writer, and it just didn't work out, that these folks said, Luke, you need to just write it and draw it yourself. Like, don't try to find a writer, just do it yourself. Like, and so that was issue 1 was my first script that I ever wrote of Hybrids. So that was pretty cool. I hadn't thought about inking this until you mentioned that. Now I started inking it. And this is the fastest, sloppiest ink. Oh, well.
That's all right.
It's better than I could do.
It's a happy little shadow.
Yeah. Alrighty, real quick, we'll do another quick bit of Steve Inman, and then come back and watch a little bit more art, and then we'll wrap it up. Yes. Gotta have some more. Gotta have our Steve Inman today.
Well, it's Chaz's first day on the job at the car wash, and nothing more exciting than making that paycheck that you deserve, that you earn on your own. And of course, he gets caught up in the brush, and now he has become part of the brush. Him and the brush are one, and now he's in backpack mode, and now he's in star mode, and now he's completely passed out. Chaz, you okay? Hey, buddy. Once again, Chaz all jacked up on Mountain Dew, and he goes spinning around like a spider monkey. First day on the job, and he's just proud that he's going to get his first paycheck without mommy. And right here, it looks like he's going to need mommy's help as he goes spinning around and around and around. Chaz will lose his job and go back to getting allowance from Mama Garrett.
Oh, Chaz, why?
Alrighty, one last one, and this.
And welcome to the National Sidewalk Racing Champions as number 2 comes in.
Ow!
Ouch!
And number 3 and 4 pass him right up. Let's take a quick look at the replay. What went wrong here? You can
I felt that.
perfect,
Yeah,
run
me
here.
too.
He started out really nice. Things got a little hairy right here. I don't know if that guy was like a black cat that walked by and gave him back much. But you can see number 3 and 4 pass him up with no issue. Man, what a tragedy here tonight.
Let's do this one more time.
Sidewalk Racing Champions as number 2 comes in, and it is over for him. And number 3 and 4 pass him right up. Let's take a quick look at the replay.
His voice is perfect for this kind of like.
He had a perfect run here. He started out really nice. Things got a little hairy right here. I don't know if that guy was like a black cat that walked by and gave him bad luck. But you can see number 3 and 4 pass him up with no issue. Man, what a tragedy here tonight. And welcome to the National Sidewalk Racing Champions.
All right. Let's go back to our oh yeah, shaking shape nicely. I like the shaded eyes there. Very nice.
I always like that. I can always just really spoke to me. I like drawing hair. I like drawing hair and foliage.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know why. I don't know. I wish I knew why. They just, I find them fun.
I have another photography question. What lenses do you tend to gravitate towards?
Well, I draw. I mean, I take photos with a Nikon camera, and so I actually use mostly Nikon glass and then some Sigma.
Hey, my current belle of the ball for all my lenses is the Sigma Art 18 and 35 millimeter lens, because it just does everything. Like
really
I
does.
literally am considering selling most of my lenses except for like one or two, and just getting like they have like a 50 to 100 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really nice. Nikon.
Yeah,
I've never used a Nikon camera before.
I really like
use
it.
because I started out with Canon, and that's what I pretty much stuck with. I have the Canon. So I had the T3. I think it was the Rebel. Then I have the 80D, and now I have the 90D, and I'm probably going to stick to Canon because I have the C100 as my cinema camera, and I have a JVC as well.
I think whatever you start
where
out
would we
with,
find your photography, by the way?
you can actually go to lukestonestudios.com and find some of my photography up there. So I do encourage everyone to go by lukestonestudios.com and check that out. There's going to be comic stuff there. There is a little link that says Through the Lens. And so you'll be able to get to see some of the stuff that I do as far as photography goes there. It's mostly artistic stuff, not a whole lot of
Luke Studios. I am going to be dropping that in the chat here in just a second.
Dude, these are gorgeous.
Thank you, sir.
These are absolutely gorgeous. Seriously, man, you underplay yourself way too much. Really nice use of color. This is fascinating.
I do have an Instagram.
Please tell me you have an Instagram or something.
You can link to the Instagram there on my website. It's in there. Mostly, it's been a lot of. I haven't done a lot of photography lately. It's been mostly comic book stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lot of time, drawing superheroes and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have an excellent eye. This is really interesting.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's one of the reasons why I love photography, because I've always found it interesting that these manufacturers and stuff sell these cameras, and it's like what they're selling is the artist's talent, because the camera is just a conduit. If I hand you my camera, your photos look like you took them, and that's what makes them unique, because everyone's eye is different, and everyone sees something different. Like this is wow.
Yeah, it's the same way with art, like this tablet.
Oh my God.
A lot of people have this tablet, but I draw the way I draw, And,
wow.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And another big help I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Another big help that everybody can do is if they go by that Indiegogo link and help me out by sharing that with everybody they know. It hasn't had any movement for a few days, and so that anybody that has done comics knows that that's nerve-wracking when you haven't gotten any movement on those things.
Oh yeah.
Well, so here's a question: if I wanted to purchase like the you said it's a 125 page anthology of all 5 comics, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 120 pages.
How
so
much
it's got all 5. Okay, it's got all 5 issues, plus it has a backup story for a character that's in issue 5, but you don't really get to know her, so you get to know her in that backup issue. And it's got a post-credit scene that is exclusive to the book, and it's got a bunch of creator commentary. That book is a starting entry level at $25, plus $10
PayPal
shipping.
or something.
Go right to the Indiegogo, and that book will ship immediately. Not immediately. It will ship in November. Early November is when it's planned to ship.
I'll shoot you the link directly to Hybrids here and to your Facebook chat.
Thank you.
I always like to shade the wings of the characters, this underarm rib part. It's one of my favorite parts, the shade. I don't know why. I think because I really like some of the old Captain America stuff, and they heavily shaded that area. My guy Mike Zeck, when he did Cap.
It's always interesting watching artists do muscle definition because some people go, like this, this hyper, hyper muscular, roided out kind of thing. I don't know if you watch Netflix at all, but there's a series called Baki the Grappler that I've followed for a couple of months, and it's just interesting looking at the different animation styles that are used. You definitely seem to go for a more relaxed. Like the guy is clearly muscular as hell, but he's not like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I eat bricks for fun kind of thing.
Yeah, I try to go with a more realistic look because, I draw this as a comic book. I'm not thinking about movies and TV and stuff. But if that ever happens, I want it to be realistic. The reason why I draw them as realistic, obviously they're kind of cartoony, but it's not. But it's the reason why I draw them without like that insane definition is so that cosplayers can cosplay easily. I also try to make simple costumes that they can put together themselves. So,
what is something that you would tell a young kid watching this stream right now who wants to do what you're doing?
Practice and don't get distracted. There's going to be a lot of things that can distract you from achieving what you want to do, and just don't let them.
I would also say that there are going to be a lot of people out there who will tell you that you can't do something. Maybe they tried it before and it didn't work out or whatever. But to remember that no one can want your dream as much as you do, and that the only person who can get you where you ultimately want to go is you. And so, because for me, like, I'm self-taught with this stuff. I didn't go to school for it at all, and everyone's road to Ithaca is different. And so, I definitely salute and applaud your artistic talent because it really shows the fact that you were able to, over the course of like 1.2 hours, create a fully fledged character from scratch. The proportions are correct, all that stuff. You've got the juice, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
All righty, I think we're about ready to wrap it up now because I know, Luke, you have been requested to host your own party tonight. So
party. I've never done that before, so we'll see how that works out.
Okay, well, Luke, thanks for stopping on by. Do back hybrids. Link to it is in the description below. It's also in the chat. And we will be back next week. And hopefully next week, Leanore will be coloring a page of Tilt 2. Until next time, we will see you later. Take care, everyone.